Sure. Hey, Dayton, with all the financial suffering the industry has taken this year, what do you think that's gonna? How do you think that's gonna affect the free agent market?
Flanny, I mean, that's the question that we've all been asking ourselves. And truthfully, I mean, we're just really focused on evaluating the players the best we can. Obviously, there was a shortened 2020 season, but we have enough information, I believe, based on current judgments, data, previous history of the player, all that factors in. I guess really um, the uh, the issue in doubt really is overall health in a lot of cases with players. I mean, that's somewhat the mystery because a lot of guys weren't stretched out on the pitching front, and then you're expected them to participate over 162 games in 2021, which we fully expect. So, but the financial part of it is always an issue with this game in this market. The economics of the game are challenging at times, but right now, truly, we're just focused on how to supplement our roster, improve our roster, and to win more games in 2021.
Well, speaking of your roster too, how challenging will it be just to be able to hang on to some of the guys you got with all the arbitration cases you got coming up?
And we're still trying to manage through how arbitration is going to unfold. What the formula is going to be, and so are they going to prorate the numbers over 162, which to me uh, works in favor for some players, but for others it does not. And so I think there's probably a way to compromise and be more fair in that process, but they've yet to determine how that's going to work. And so, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, we have more players that are up for arbitration this year than we've had in many years, as you know. So Jin Wong and Scott Sharp are working through a lot of those discussions right now with
Do you have a
agents.
set? Do you have a set budget right now? Usually, it's somewhere near the winter meetings, but do you have something from Mr. Sherman now?
Yeah, we've talked about the importance of really just over a 3-year period planning, um, of what we think our projections will be, and the product of the experience level of our players, where they are in their service time is naturally going to keep our payroll a little bit down, which I'm more than fine with because we have to continue to give our young players opportunity if we're going to get back to a championship level of play on a consistent basis. And so I'm not really concerned about what the payroll is. I'm just more concerned about who the players are and that do they make sense for our team at this particular time. And so I'm confident, Flanny, that if there's a player or two out there that fit with this group, with this timeline, um, we'll be able to be aggressive and try to get them here in Kansas City.
Dayton, when you say a player out there that fits with the group in the timeline, what in your mind is fitting? Just because I mean, like there could be maybe I don't know if you're a more veteran type guy you feel like with the younger guys you have fits, or if it's somebody that would grow with the group that you have. I mean, what fits in your mind?
Well, as you know, Lynn, I mean, free agency has been proven time and time again. It's a failed way to build your team. You build your team from uh, the draft internationally, player development, transitioning young players to the major leagues, allowing them to compete and perform and get better at the major league level. We're in that process right now with some of our players. We're going to continue, with that process. But the players that we look to bring in um, will be individuals that fit our style of play, blend in well with this young group, can help propel them and get them even better. one of the things we used to talk a lot about in 2012 was if we need Salvador Perez, or we desire Salvador Perez and Mike Moustakas and Eric Hosmer and even Alex Gordon and Billy Butler to a certain degree, if we want them to develop into the championship caliber players that we all expect, we better look to acquire some veterans with winning experience, model success on the field, off the field. We better add them to this roster, to this group of young players, and so they have those great examples in front of them that are going to motivate and propel them and take them in places where they're going to ultimately need to go to win. And so that's kind of the mindset right now as we navigate through free agents and trades. I mean, the trade market, truthfully, from the discussions we've had, is there's not as much discussion on that right now, and I think it's because of the incomplete season in 2020, some of the evaluations, and so there's always a level of insecurity that exists within an organization when you make a trade under the best of circumstances. And so I think some of that is more magnified because of the shortened season.
Does that same shortened season and the evaluation process you alluded to earlier and just now again, does it make it more likely that your first look is some of your own free agents just because you have more familiarity, you have a better feel for the health and the issues that you raised?
I think so. I mean, the important thing with any evaluation, Lynn, as you well know, and everybody on this call, is you have to do a very thorough and complete evaluation of your own players. You have to be able to get that right first and have that foundation and that sense of security as you branch out and explore opportunities via trade or free agency to blend in with your current talent. And so, I'm proud of the work that we were able to do this fall. Mr. Sherman was very supportive of allowing us to, really use a lot of resources to have a group here at Kauffman Stadium for about a month, and then another, 90 to 100 players in Arizona. And so I feel like we've accomplished as much as we possibly could during these circumstances. And I think we're going to be in a much better spot going forward. I know from a morale standpoint, our organization it's really high. It's at one of the highest levels that it's been since I've been here. I mean, obviously when you win a championship, I mean, there's nothing that replaces that. But other than that, there's never been a point in time in the history of my time here in Kansas City where the morale has been as high because of the way we were able to come alongside of our players, support our staff, through the great support of ownership, and allow us just to lead and do what we think is best for baseball players and for our game in this community. And so our players recognize that, our staff recognizes that. And so, we're in a good spot going forward.
Along those lines, as far as the support and the morale organizationally, I mean, I know there's been, it's been said that you guys were adding to your scouting department. Was that some veteran type guys? Is that the impetus for that because of just the need to do more self-evaluation? Was the impetus for that just getting a better look where there's been a year where you haven't had a lot of looks at other organizations? What was sort of the thought behind that? And can you speak to who you guys were adding?
Well, I can't mention, it has been reported, and I would say for this call, we're looking to execute some things around the first of the year. There's not a whole lot I can say about who we've hired at this point in time, because truthfully, they're not under contract. And because of just some of the things that we've dealt with economically with front office staff, scouts, development people, salary reductions, et cetera, it doesn't, we don't feel it's right to add people at this point in time. However, as we get more flexibility after the first of the year, based on, some changing economics, if you will, I think we're going to be in a position to bring in some other people add to our chemistry. And Lynn, I think it's important to always bring in some veteran people, some different eyes to evaluate your system, evaluate your processes. I hope we're unbiased with our evaluations internally, but we're human beings. We've got to guard against that. And so part of the motivation in bringing in another person or two, an experienced evaluator, terrific baseball minds, people that have led departments, and to look at our organization with a fresh set of eyes. So that's part of it. Also, Lynn, I think you want to project and look 3 to 5 years into the future as you add to your staff. Just keep new ideas coming, change things around. I mean, we did that a little over a year ago with JJ. He's been in one role for many, many years, although he's very versatile and capable of doing a lot of things. We changed it up. We put him on the field because he has that experience, and to be on the field, and we kind of just tweaked his role a little bit. And I think if we're all honest, I mean, everybody wants new challenges. And so that's part of the motivation in bringing in some different people, new set of eyes, fresh eyes, challenge us in ways that maybe we're not thinking. Because at the end of the day, we just want to be great stewards of this franchise and get better each and every day. And the way our people get better is to bring in other individuals as well. Learn from them. I mean, when you get a chance to interact with somebody different in the industry, you learn something too.
Hey, Dayton, would it be fair to say, and this has nothing to do with openers or anything like that, but 2021 will likely see more different starting pitchers than really any year that you've been around?
You're probably right, Vern. And I think one of the discussions that I anticipate having more consistently, and we always do. I mean, so whenever you leave the ballpark at night, you always remind yourself and ask yourself, who's the next day's starting pitcher? What is the overall health of that starting pitcher? The freshness of the bullpen. And then when you wake up in the morning, under the best of circumstances, you rehearse those discussions in your mind as well. And so, yes, I anticipate us being more proactive from a medical standpoint, if it's possible. Constantly figuring out how to keep guys healthy, keep them going. Communication is so important. Engaging our performance science at a deeper level as they manage workloads and exertion rates. Looking at the data, but also let's not overthink it as well. These guys are genetically gifted. They're professional athletes. Baseball players adapt very well, mentally, physically. They're competitors. Let's not put limitations on them, but yes, we need to make sure we have the proper oversight and to make sure we keep them healthy over 162, and not only 162, but for this year, but for next year and the following year. It all adds up. But there's no excuse for not being on top of it. We have plenty of people, but at the end of the day, I don't want to overthink it either, Vern. I mean, let's trust the pitcher. Let's trust the player. They'll tell us based on how they're performing, what their work level's like. It's going to require a lot of collaboration, a lot of transparent conversations, and we'll manage through it.
Dayton, where do you evaluate? You'd mentioned, where you feel and getting fresh eyes on the minor leagues, or just people evaluating your system. It's hard from an outsider's perspective, even to not look at the minor league system and feel great about your pitching in general, whether it be starting or relief work. Where are you as far as hitters go? How comfortable are you that you have the bats you're going to want to move up over the next few years to kind of complete any issues you might have had in the lineups before?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, Cody. When back in 2010, when Baseball America and a lot of publications came out and said we had the best farm system in baseball, some say it perhaps was the very best farm system in the history of baseball. and you look at who those players were, a lot of them never became stars in the major leagues. In fact, some of them didn't get over a year of service in the major leagues. And so, as you know, and we all know from following this game for many, many years, there's no sure thing in baseball. There's no guarantee. And so you never have enough pitching. You never have as much talent as you think. The beauty of our game is there's going to be a player or two that we're talking about this time next year that wasn't on the radar, anybody's radar, that we overlooked, baseball didn't recognize, we misevaluated. I mean, all those things happen in our game on a continuous basis. And that's what makes baseball such a wonderful debate and discussion amongst each and every one of us. And so I think we have some high end bats. Khalil Lee, he's got a chance he's going to get on base. He's going to hit with power. He's extremely competitive, almost to a fault. Kyle Isabel has as much feel to hit as any young hitter that we've had. In fact, it's not fair that people are comparing Kyle Isabel to Alex Gordon, but I understand why they do, because of his work ethic and his consistent demeanor, and he hits from the left side, and he's a very good defender. Obviously, Bobby Witt Jr. is as talented as a position player that I've been a part of. In a lot of ways, he's special. But, and by the way, I mean, we expect him to begin the season in the minor leagues. I mean, that's a great question to ask. I ask that question to our staff constantly. I've evaluated with my own eyes. I've had discussions with Bobby Witt Jr. about that very thing, getting his input as well. And, we all feel we're never going to put limitations on players. I say that all the time. Our expectations are high, but it makes no sense to come out and say that he's going to be a part of our major league club and when he has not played a full season in the minor leagues. And so we need to start him in the minor leagues. Where, at what level, that's yet to be determined. But I like our position players. You can only play 9 at a time. And do we want more depth with the position players? Of course we do. Every organization does. But we'll just continue to build and continue to draft well, sign well, develop well, so we have the best farm system in all of baseball. That's what we strive for.
I think when I talked to JJ last about Bobby Wood Jr., whether he starts in the majors or not, I think his description was the timeline had been moved up on him, as in like he already felt like organizationally he was ahead of where you thought. Is that the way you feel about it?
You never know what to expect when a player puts on that professional uniform for the first time. But I've been watching Bobby Witt, since he was 15 years old. I've seen him play a lot of baseball since he was 15. And this kid was always the best player on the field by a full grade. And so he's always been very advanced. And then you dig a little deeper and you trace it back to who he is as a person. And you realize how balanced he is, how even keeled he is. And so it really supports the tools and the ability and the performance. And it's a great predictor of what he's going to be able to do long term. And so you don't hesitate, Cody, about challenging him and maybe being aggressive with moving him, because mentally, he's so strong and he has such a nice way about him and an even keeled attitude and just kind of an innocence that, he just loves to play. And so he's not going to probably lay at bed at night, tossing and turning because of some of the failures he's experiencing in the game. He knows that that's just part of it. You get to show up the next day, play the game you love to play. And so he understands that. He's been raised around the game, as we all know. But you know what? Alberto Modesty has been raised around the game as well. And, Mondi's, experienced a lot of ups and downs as well. And so just because you've been raised in the game and grown up in the game doesn't mean that you're ready for the major leagues sooner than everybody else. I think what it does allow you to have some comfort with as an evaluator, as a general manager, is that they understand the rhythm of the game. And so probably around the Christmas table and probably around Thanksgiving dinner and every holiday and family reunion, they talked baseball. And so that's the uniqueness of their families as it pertains to, their success, future success in this game. It's just part of what they've grown up with.
Hey, Dayton, when it comes, first I want to ask you about Alberto Modesty, just that late stretch he had closing the season. How much confidence did that give you going into next season that he's secure at that position? Then also with guys like Whit Merrifield and Nicky Lopez, who kind of came along late, didn't really expect them to be, since they're high draft picks coming up. How much do you think the minor league players that you have now, how much not having to play last season stunted that development to get a guy like a Whit Merrifield or Nicky Lopez that comes along late that you might not have missed through your evaluation process?
Yeah, great question, Harold. I think that you're right about that. And that's one of the mysteries right now that we're all experiencing in our game. Those players that we know have benefited from patience, benefited from opportunity that they've earned because they just show up every single day and a coach or a manager or a scout believes in them and they get put on a team as the 25th or 24th man, and they get opportunity because somebody gets hurt. And, nobody ever became a star until they got an opportunity. Okay. And so that's, again, one of the mysteries of the 2020 season is players like Whit Merrifield, players like Mike Avila, and I can go on and give example after example. And so, yeah, that's an unknown for us. But that's why we're thankful that we were given an opportunity to have players here at Kauffman Stadium and have, a lot of players in Arizona. And that's where I think that, we were able to catch up a little bit. And as far as Monty's concerned, I mean, that's probably when I look at individual accomplishments, the celebration of Alex Gordon ending his career here in Kansas City, which is huge. It's special. There's words don't describe how I feel about what we were able to do and to make that happen for his legacy, the legacy of the organization, the respect for our fans to keep Alex Gordon in here for his entire career is really rewarding, as I said here today. But the second thing that I hold on to at this season and hold dear is just what Mondesi was able to do, to rebound, to get his swagger back, fight through the adversity. Look, everybody can recognize his talent and he has baseball skill as well. We've talked at length about a lot of these things. And so just to see him freed up and play and to do well was a great lift. We celebrated that as an organization because he's such a good-hearted, tender-hearted, loving kid. He's very, very warm and he works extremely hard. And, it was wearing on him, Harold, that he was struggling. I mean, we all saw that. And so to see him, he's such a beautiful kid, and to see him do well was really special. So he's family.
Hi, Dayton. How are you?
Hey, Karen, how you doing?
Just fine. Hey, I'm just kind of wondering, do you prepare for 2021 the way you always have? Or because we're still in a pandemic, do you take into account a lot of the adjustments that had to be made last year?
Well, I think that we're going to be optimistic. We're going to expect 162 games and to be baseball as we once knew it. But we also have to prepare for worst case scenario. I think in all levels of leadership, you need to understand that. And so we are certainly prepared to adhere to all the protocols that Major League Baseball and the Players Association agreed upon. If we have to start the season with a lot of those protocols in place, I have confidence that we can get through that because of the discipline of all the Major League players this past year. They showed extreme discipline. They persevered through a lot of change. And as I said, and that speaks to the adaptability of Major League Baseball players. And so, but Karen, I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to play, start the season on time, with fans in the stands. That's really important to John Sherman. It's important to our players. It's so important to our fans, to see each and every one of you at the ballpark. I mean, that's what we miss more than anything, right? Just the relationships and just being able to share this game and go through a baseball season together, the ups and downs, the dealing with, the successes, the drama, the relationships. I mean, that's what we all miss. And so we're very hopeful and optimistic that we'll be able to once again, go about this in our accustomed routine.
Through every adversity, there's always something positive you can take. Is there anything out of 2021 that you would like to see, whether it's the expanded rosters or just some of the other things, some of the new rules or whatever, like the, extra inning rules? Would you like to see any of those continue even as things get back to normal?
Yeah, good question. I kind of like the changes. If we, I like a doubleheader. Now, I like a 9 and a 7. I would love to see that every Sunday afternoon. That's not my decision, right? But I think our fans in this community would embrace that. They could show up in the second or third inning of game 1 and watch 6 or 7 innings and then 30 minutes in between and, have some lunch or at the ballpark and then get ready to watch 7 more innings of baseball. I think that would be a great uniter, in this community in baseball. And so I like doubleheaders. The DH is probably something that, we've lived with that obviously since we've been here. I can see both sides to that, but I think players would probably like that opportunity and in the spirit of working together, that might make sense for the game. I like the extra inning rule. Some people don't. Some people have been surprised to hear me say that because they know I'm more of a traditionalist with a lot of this stuff. But I like that. Play maybe the 10th inning. Then after that, start a runner on second with no outs. I kind of like that, and I think the fans probably do as well. But whatever the rules are, Karen, we'll just go out and play baseball. And as a kid, I'm sure like you and many on this call, I used to root for extra innings, and I hope they, play baseball all night. Didn't bother me one bit. But, I understand that, there may be some important changes that we need to make for, the overall good of the game.
Dayton, you mentioned JJ on the field, and I know last year made decisions with Zumi and Paul Gibson. I wonder from like that player development standpoint with the pitching and hitting side, how have you, a year into those changes, how do you assess what they've done?
Unbelievable. And, I was talking to JJ at length yesterday, and we were talking about Alex Zumwalt, the great work that he's done. His commitment level is off the charts. Talking about Paul Gibson and Mitch Stetter, and the work that they've been doing as well. And Gibby has the trust of all of our pitchers, and as Alex has with all of our hitters, just because they know they're extremely committed, they care deeply, they're great communicators, they're excellent listeners, and that's why they're great communicators, is because they listen first. And so we couldn't be more pleased. And, Alec, really, we're just getting started with that. It hasn't been too long since we put those guys in charge of those departments. And so we're still growing, we're still learning. But the important thing is we have a wave of pitchers and position players and staff members that are growing together, learning from one another. Iron sharpens iron. And, we're at a very strong point, I believe, from a leadership standpoint, with this group. Then having Mitch Meyer in the front office, mean, Mitch is a star. He's going to become a greater star in this game. He's got perspective from a major league player. He's got perspective from major league coach. And now he's getting front office experience. He's extremely smart. People like him for obvious reasons. He's a good family man. And he's kind of overseeing, a lot of the things that we're doing, from a base running, bunting, outfield play from this office in a more intentional way, because as we all know, and we all recognize, a lot of our success is predicated on being able to perform better than everybody else in those areas. Running bases, going first to third, make sure we score from second on every base hit. Outfield play, taking away runs, preventing runs, executing well in the interior cuts and relays. I mean, all those things are so important. I mean, you saw the playoffs, you saw a game lost because of the inability to execute an interior cut and relay and some of those things. And so, and that's, to me, that's why we won in the playoffs. The reason we won in the playoffs is because we didn't lose games. We didn't make a lot of mistakes. Now, certainly we make mistakes and we weren't perfect, but we made routine plays. We made great plays. We hit cutoff men. We are aggressive on the bases. We were fearless. We just didn't make a lot of mistakes. And that's how you win 8 in a row. And that's how you go on some of these runs. So anyway, we got a lot of work to do. I say all that in humility, but it just reiterates how important the fundamentals are in this game. Just there's certain fundamentals that you just got to focus. You got to be relentless on them every single day. And so Mitch, Gibby, Alec, JJ, all those individuals, I mean, they're just extremely focused on these areas that are going to, I think, prove a lot of great dividends for us in the future.
Who else?
Come on, Saran, let's go.
Yeah, I was wondering when you were going to get in there.
I just taking my time, man. Just trying not to step on any toes. Where would you say the timeline is towards contention, Dayton? You talked about, not blocking guys, needing to get time for the young players. That would make it seem, it could be perceived, right? Somebody could take that and say, well, Dayton's saying it's going to be another year. We're still in the development mode. How would you react if that was what someone took from your earlier comment?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. And we expect to win next year. I mean, what does that look like? Is it going to be enough wins to make the playoffs? We'll find out. But our mindset, Saran, is going to go out and try to win every single pitch, every inning, win every game. And that's the only way that we're ever going to win another championship. You've got to expect to win in all aspects. And trust me, Mike Matheny and the coaching staff, they understand that completely. My point with the young players is just making sure that they get ample time to develop and that we are patient with them. Because to win another championship, we are going to need, the Brady Sinkers and the Chris Bubiks and guys like Nicky Lopez and Alberto Modesty. We're going to need them to turn into stars. And the only way they're going to do that is we have to give them a chance and stay patient with them. And so we're prepared to continue to do that. Hunter Dozier, we believe, is capable of taking a step forward, and that's going to happen. He's going to have to get opportunity to do that. I mean, Whit Merrifield is one of the more consistent guys on the planet. We need to build around that as well. Salvador Perez, in my mind, just keeps getting younger and younger. I mean, just his attitude, his mindset keeps it fresh. He's extremely hard worker. He loves to work hard. As far as timelines are in, we're just going to focus on getting better each and every minute of every single day. Every month get better, every year get better, and then maybe someday we'll wake up and we'll be really, really good. And so that's got to be the focus on how we do this. The difficulty with answering that question, as you well know, you've studied sports as long as I have, is just the unpredictability of health, the unpredictability of what the other teams are going to go through, how they're going to respond through different things, how your opponents are going to perform. Obviously, we got to focus on just what we do. So we are in the process of building a championship rotation and a championship caliber pitching staff. That's undeniable. We got to keep it healthy. We got to keep learning. We got to keep them growing. We got to keep adding to it. You can't have enough pitching. We have to make sure that we are as strong as anybody in baseball at catcher, shortstop, and center field. We have to continue to work hard so we have a legit leadoff 3 and 4 hole hitter. And in our minds, that leadoff hitter, that 3 and 4 hole hitter, those impact bats, 2 of the 3 need to come from shortstop, catcher, and center field if we're going to win a championship in this market. And so that's what we've always focused on. We focused on those players out of the draft. We focused them on high ceiling trades. And so we've tried to be as strong as we can up the middle. And but I like where we are right now as far as the evolution of a championship caliber team, more so than any place that we've been here. Am I saying that we're going to win a championship in a certain year? No, I'm not saying that, because a lot has to happen, but we're going to start to get much better sooner than anybody expects. And we'll just continue to build and grow and manage the roster in a way that allows us to match up with the other teams in our division.
You talked about high upside trade, and you talked earlier about the trade market. Is the trade market, because of the analytic age, if everybody's doing the same analytics, everybody sees the same thing, it would seem like it would be hard to match up trade wise if everybody says, on a 10-point scale, this guy's a 7.7, this guy's, how the art of the trade, seemingly some of that maybe has been lost from the game. Does that make it harder, or does that open up opportunities for, if you can still see the scout part, the art part of what the other side is, that you mentioned a high ceiling trade, harder, easier to make those kind of deals?
Much harder. And I think for a lot of the reasons that you stated, Seren, look, the reason a lot of trades don't happen is we tend to focus more on what we're giving up, what we're losing, instead of what we're adding, and how this particular player, pitcher, group of players blend in with our current team, and what this player or pitcher does to put us over the top or allows us to match up with our division or who we might be competing against in the playoffs. And so you've got to continue to keep that mindset, what you're getting in return. If the industry perceives that we're overpaying for a player or two or a pitcher or two, I'm okay with that. If indeed it's the pitcher or player that we absolutely feel like we need to help us ultimately get where we need to get, to match up, to win in the playoffs, to win a World Series. And so that's kind of our mindset. But I think your point is right on. I think that you need to make sure that there is a lot of people probably thinking alike. Bill Fisher, who you all know, Bill Fisher used to say, if everybody's thinking alike, nobody's thinking. And so we encourage diversity of thought constantly, in this organization and hopefully the industry as well.
Another one, just to kind of dig a little bit deeper on something you said. You talked about, I think when Flanny asked you about a budget, he's talking about like a 3-year window or a 3-year plan budget. Kind of that's what you were talking about. You can hear that. Listen, you spend reportedly over $1 billion as an ownership group, and then baseball has a terrible, like everyone else has to deal with a pandemic and takes finance back. Is that to say it's a 3-year recovery process from that? And I know you're not normally a club that's super active in free agency, but you made a splash, Gil Mesh being one of the big ones to try to jumpstart things. Does that mean that maybe we're looking at a 3-year window where Royals fans need to have reasonable expectations about what ownership can actually put out there and just flat out writing checks?
I think that, Soren, first of all, I think that John Sherman, our ownership group, I've never heard John say one time, talk about how much money we're losing. I've never heard him complain one bit of what we can't do. He's very focused on doing everything we can to improve our team in a very prudent and smart and thoughtful way. And so that's how we're moving forward. I don't anticipate us having regression with regard to what we can't do, especially when we feel like our team is performing at a level where we can win. Okay. And so you're never going to probably win the pennant in July, or excuse me, you're not going to win the pennant at the winter meetings in January, adding to free agencies. You're constantly going to be making moves along the way, as you certainly well know, to improve your team, to get over the hump. And so that's what I believe we'll continue to do. We're gonna make moves this off season, and we're gonna be better. We're gonna be a better baseball team once we enter spring training. When we report to Surprise Arizona in February, we're gonna have a more talented roster then than we do now. When we leave spring training, I anticipate us to have an improved roster. And then as we get through the first quarter of the season, we'll evaluate what we need, and then we will continue to improve this roster. I do not foresee economics being a major deterrent if it is an opportunity to really improve our baseball team significantly. Now, there's a lot of evaluations that go into that, as you well know. There is an analytical evaluation. There's a medical evaluation. There is a scouting, a traditional baseball man's evaluation. There is a character evaluation that goes into that, and there's a financial evaluation. All those evaluations are part of our decision process. And but right now, I don't look at us. I don't go to bed and wake up thinking, boy, we can't do this because of economics. But I look at the landscape of talent available to us, and we're trying to be as aggressive as we can, but we also want to make sure that look, and I was raised in this game, I don't want to ever overpay for players. Sometimes you got to extend out there a year and a half, like we did with Infante. We gave Infante an extra year to get him. We gave Gil Mesh an extra year to get him. I understand sometimes you've got to do that. And I suspect if we have to do that again at some point in time, we'll be able to do that. But it all goes back to the evaluation of the player and what the player adds to your team. How do you want to really overpay significantly if it's just going to be 1 to 2 or 3 wins over 162? I mean, we all want to get the best bang we can for our buck. We all want to make good financial decisions. That's part of operating as a winner, is making good financial decisions. And, we want to win at everything that we do.
Thank you.
Hey, Dayton, I got a 2-part question for you. One, with Tampa Bay getting to the World Series, how much of an impact the way they go about their business do they have on the industry?
Well, I think they do a great job. Number one, they got a terrific manager in Kevin Cash. I've admired him for a long time. I think they hired a young guy who is the hardest worker, prepares better than anybody can expect to prepare. Great relationships with players. He gets the most out of his players. That's why he's manager of the year. I believe we have that exact same person in Mike Matheny. A lot of those character traits as well. They do an excellent job of developing and maintaining pitching. They're very transactional. They're more transactional than we are. That's just, if I've been criticized for that many times. that we stay with players a little too long. Sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't. We're one of the least transactional organizations in baseball. Some people would say the model for a small market team is you need to be more transactional. I believe that our fan base is different than some of the other small markets. I believe they love following a player's career. They enjoy the ups and downs and going through life with that player, their struggles. Therefore, when they do finally have their successes, they celebrate it a little more in depth. It's a little more meaningful to them. I don't speak for everybody. I get it. But I think as we go forward, Greg, I have to be more open-minded to being more transactional. I mean, I have to self-evaluate. It's easy for me to self-evaluate, trust me, but I believe one of our strengths is staying with players and believing in players, and encouraging them, and don't stop believing in them. And just when they're ready to quit, we come alongside of them and we breathe more life into them. But if you have young players in your system that are pushing and they're ready, it's a little easier to move on from somebody at the major league level. And so, it's kind of a product of having a very good farm system. Look, and there's as Soren said, there's teams they hold on to players more. They stay on with their prospects. Baseball's experiencing a level of contraction right now. I think the major league player today is extremely talented. But the supply and demand's a little different today than it was 10 years ago as well. So I think in the end, to win a world championship, you get a group of players together, you raise them to win together, you allow them to develop trust in one another, trust with the coaching staff, trust with the front office, a love affair with the fans. You create that perfect environment, if there is such a thing, and that's how you ultimately win a world championship. Like, we never win here unless it's a complete buy-in from everybody and an expectation from the fans, the environment the fans create. And so the fans are going to buy in. They're going to support these players unconditionally if they've kind of lived through their ups and downs as well. And so that's just what we believe in this market with our fans. We pull for each other. We believe in each other. But yeah, of course. I mean, we admire what Tampa's done. Admire what the Dodgers have done. Look, it's not easy. If you're the Los Angeles Dodgers and you're expected to win every single game, when you lose, it's a failure. And when you don't win the World Series, I mean, I lived through that at some level, and it's hard to. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Dodgers got on an even greater run now. They've got the pressure lifted, and great environment, terrific manager, very talented, dedicated leadership team and management, great history of the franchise. It's hard to win a world championship, and it's really, really hard in baseball when you can eliminate star players on the major league field. You can take them right out of the game. The best pitchers only throwing, unless it's Bumgarner, they're only throwing once every 4 days. That impact bat, I mean, Barry Bonds, perhaps one of the best players ever to play this game, never won a world championship. And that wouldn't happen. Tell me what other sport that's happened in. The all-time greatest baseball or football player, usually they win. If it's at the right position, they win a championship. Basketball, they're going to win a championship. It doesn't happen in baseball because you can eliminate that person. You can take them right out of the game. And that's why it's so difficult to win a world championship.
Secondly, I was wondering if, and I know your focus is on your team, but can you share your observations and thoughts about the managerial hires within the division?
I'm happy for all those individuals. You know, I think Tony La Russa's, you know, one of the greatest baseball minds ever, truthfully. I appreciate him. I appreciate the time that he's allowed many to get to know him and to share knowledge with him. AJ Hinch, I think, is a terrific person. I love the fact he was so accountable for what happened in Houston. I admire that. Never once thought about kicking him when he was down. He's a smart guy. He's a good guy. He cares about people. I don't know Alex as well, Alex Cora, but I know he's a good man as well. And I trust Major League Baseball, and I trust the Boston Red Sox and their leadership team. They're smart people. They're good people. They're doing what's right for the game. I'm glad those guys are getting a second chance. I think that's what makes our country special and what makes our game special. We give people second chances. We don't kick them when they're down. We allow them to make amends and persevere through challenging times. So I don't think I'm missing anybody else. I think Rick Renteria did a great job. He hung in there good with that team and the White Sox. And, you know, Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn have done an amazing job in Chicago. You know, they had 7 straight years of losing in one of the biggest markets in sports. They were disciplined. They made good trades. They wore it. And they've got a very talented team on the field. I mean, that team that the White Sox have is as talented as any team I've seen in a long, long time, maybe ever. Not saying they're the best team yet. Just saying there's a lot of talent on that field. I mean, you've got a lot of sixes at those positions. They're very versatile. They can beat you in a lot of different ways. And so they've done a great job.
Dayton, you mentioned the minor leagues, and I wondered just this past week we've seen some teams starting making announcements about affiliations. I know you guys already. This is probably just drawing a conclusion, but you guys have already extended the exhibition with Northwest Arkansas. But do you know what your lower level affiliates are going to look like at this point, where you'll be sending players to?
You know, we have a decent idea, Lynn, but we're not 100% sure. And your Major League Baseball has asked us to just kind of keep that close to the vest right now, especially the lower levels have not been completely determined. I mean, you can speculate on some of the things that you know, and you're probably going to be right. I don't see us not being in Omaha or Northwest Arkansas, but it's not official yet. You know, JJ's really on top of that, and he's a part of a player development committee that is working through some of these issues on a daily basis, not only with alignment, but also with protocols and the structure of the minor leagues next year, and which perhaps, there will be somewhat of an adaptation to the normal season because of some of the protocols, et cetera, that they're working through, but nothing's officially, been released at this point. I think there's a few other teams, Lynn, that are kind of up in the air, other franchises that they're working through some things. So it would just create more confusion and probably more frustration if some of this stuff began to leak out at a much higher level. Some of it has. I get it. Some other organizations have already made announcements, and that's premature at this point based on what I've been told.
Sorry, we're coming up on about an hour here. Is everybody covered?
Thanks, guys.
All right, Dayton, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Great questions.
Thanks,
We'll be in touch
Thank
with
you.
everybody when anything newsworthy happens. So if nothing before Thanksgiving, have a great Thanksgiving, everyone, and stay safe, please.
Wait, Swanee, before you go, I just wanted to ask, so like, is there anything planned? Anything? Like right now, technically, if nothing happens, we'll see it spring training type of thing, or is there another date
I'm
coming?
sure
where
we'll get Mike with you guys. We'll get Dayton with you guys. Any moves we make, things like that. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing on the schedule, but we sure won't leave you in the dark either. If something happens or you guys need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Dayton's always been phenomenal answering questions, and Mike will be the same. And if we have any player movement or anything like that, we'll be all over it with you guys.
Okay.
The one thing I
Thank
would
you.
say, Seren, is, I mean, we've always appreciated the work that you all do in this market, not only with baseball but all the sports. Really, you keep it going, you keep the blood pumping, and it's really important that we continue to do that, especially in our game in baseball right now. I mean, with a shortened season, with moves maybe a little slower than normal. I mean, we need this group as much as any other time in our game. So we want to be transparent. We want to give you as much information as we possibly can. We want your stories written really, really well with complete and accurate and information that motivates fans to follow our game. You guys that are involved in the broadcast and the radios, to be able to have the necessary information to debate well. That's what we want. Well, hopefully we always operate that way. But I think that truthfully, we all probably have a greater sense today of the importance of each other's roles than ever before. At least I do. And so, anyway, we thank you guys for your time.